or already at an intermediate level. You've probably had this moment. You wanted to speak. You had the words in your head, and nothing came out. Your mind went blank. Your mouth refused to move. And all that confidence you had? Gone. Sound familiar? You're not alone. That's why I'm here today. To talk honestly about what confidence in English really means, why it feels hard, and how we can make it easier together. First, something important. Speaking English with confidence does not mean speaking perfectly. It doesn't mean long sentences. It doesn't mean big, complicated words. In fact, it's the opposite. Confidence is about being calm, being clear, being comfortable with what you already know. Confidence isn't a magical gift. It's something you build, one step at a time. And the good news? It doesn't take years. You can start today, even with just a few minutes of focused listening and speaking practice. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt good at understanding English, but bad at speaking it? Maybe you watch movies easily. You read articles. But when someone talks to you, your brain freezes. This is so common. And here's why. Understanding and speaking use different parts of your brain. They need different practice. That's what this episode is about. Helping you connect those two skills, so the English you understand becomes the English you use in real life. Here's the big mindset shift. You don't need to know more vocabulary. You don't need perfect grammar before speaking. That belief creates pressure. Pressure kills progress. What really builds confidence? Using what you already know. Even if it's simple, even if it's just a few phrases. It's not about how much you know, it's about how you use it. Think about kids learning to talk. They don't wait to understand every rule. They listen. They repeat. They try even when they're wrong. Adults can do the same, but fear stops us. I hear this all the time from learners. Paris, Berlin, Lisbon, Rome. They all say, I understand English, but I can't speak it. And I tell them, that's not true. You can speak. You just need to give yourself permission to try. Picture this. You're in a cafe. Someone asks, where are you from? Or, what do you do? You know the answer. You've said it in your head 100 times. But your voice gets stuck. Why? Not because you don't know English. Because your brain wants to protect you from embarrassment. But you don't need protection. You need practice. And listening helps. Listening isn't passive. It's powerful. When you listen actively, you learn rhythm, pronunciation, real expressions. Your brain starts to recognize patterns, and the more you hear, the easier it is to use those words yourself. That's why short listening sessions matter. Just 5 minutes a day can change everything. Start small. Listen to short conversations. Notice how people greet each other. Ask for things. Respond when they don't understand. Focus on useful phrases. Then repeat them. Say them out loud. You don't have to sound like a native speaker. You don't need to remove your accent. Your goal is simple. Be understood. Connect. Express yourself. That's real communication. And confidence grows from practice, not from perfect grammar. Here's a question. What would happen if you started speaking before you felt ready? What if, instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you just tried using the words you already know? That small action creates a big shift. It's not about becoming fluent overnight. It's about showing up, using your voice, learning by doing. Let me tell you about Daniel from Frankfurt. He studied English for years, but never spoke at work. Every time he tried, his mind shut down. So we started with a simple challenge. 1 sentence a day. He picked a phrase from a podcast, repeated it out loud, used it with a colleague. The first time felt scary, the second time easier. By the end of the month, he was leading short calls in English, and he wasn't even thinking about grammar anymore. That's the transformation I want for you. And it starts with this. Listen, repeat, speak every day, and be kind to yourself. You are not behind. You are not slow. You're learning, and learning is powerful. This space is yours, a safe space where you can grow without fear, a place where mistakes are not a problem. They're proof that you're trying. You belong here, and I'm proud of you for showing up. That alone says so much about your dedication. Before we dive in, can I ask you for a small favor? If this episode helps you, please like it, follow the podcast, and share it with someone who's also learning English. Your support helps us reach more learners around the world. Because this isn't just a podcast, it's a community. You're not learning alone. We're doing this together. Now, take a deep breath with me. Ready? Inhale, exhale. Let go of the pressure to be perfect. And let's enjoy this process of growing your confidence, one small, powerful step at a time. So many learners believe this. Confidence comes from perfect English. They imagine that once they stop making mistakes, then they'll feel ready to speak. But here's the truth. Confidence doesn't come from perfection. In fact, perfection often gets in the way. Real confidence comes from using the English you already know, clearly, calmly, and with the goal of connection. It's not about having the right words every time. It's about trusting yourself enough to use the words you have, even if they're not perfect. Think about this. Have you ever listened to someone who made small grammar mistakes, but still sounded confident? You probably didn't even notice the mistakes. What you noticed was their tone, their energy, their willingness to speak without hesitation. That's what real confidence looks like. Not correctness, but clarity and connection. When you realize that you don't need to be perfect to be understood, something changes inside you. You begin to relax. And that's when your fluency starts to grow. Let me tell you about Marta. She's a fashion designer from Barcelona. When she moved to London, she avoided speaking English. Why? She felt embarrassed by her accent, afraid of using the wrong verb tense. She thought people would judge her. Then came the big day, a short presentation at work. She practiced for hours, memorized the sentences. But when the moment came, she froze. She forgot her lines and ended up reading from her notes in a flat voice. After that, Marta decided to change her approach. Instead of chasing perfection, she focused on useful phrases. and practiced saying them naturally. She stopped worrying about small mistakes and started asking one question: did they understand me? If the answer was yes, that was success. Something amazing happened. People listened more. They smiled. They asked questions. Her confidence grew, not because she stopped making mistakes, but because she stopped letting those mistakes control her. If you think you need to be perfect before you speak confidently, you'll never feel ready. Confidence grows from action, from repetition, from letting go of fear. That's why I always say, speak before you feel ready. Your brain learns best when you try, make mistakes, and correct them in real situations. If you only study and never speak, your brain won't create the connections it needs for real communication. Mistakes aren't the problem. Silence is. Let me share another example. Lucas is a web developer from Lisbon. He spoke English quite well, but never joined meetings. He was afraid of saying something wrong. One day, his manager asked him a question directly. Lucas panicked, but he forced himself to answer. He said, "I think we need to check the design again." That's it. Nothing fancy. Just simple. After the meeting, a coworker messaged him, "Thanks for your idea. It helped a lot." That one sentence gave him confidence. He started speaking more. Soon, he was leading part of the discussion. Lucas didn't wait for perfection. He used what he knew. Here's what I want you to do. Start with short phrases. Don't worry if they're perfect. Focus on the message. Speak slowly if you need to. Use simple words. Your goal is not to impress. It's to connect. Prepare what I call confidence builders. For example, "Let me think for a second." Or, if you make a mistake, "Wait, these phrases give you time to breathe, to regroup, and to keep the conversation moving. You're not hiding your learning process, you're owning it, and that's powerful. I want to share a truth that can change the way you think about speaking English. Ready? Here it is. No one expects you to speak perfect English except maybe you. Most native speakers don't even speak perfect English. They use contractions. They use informal words. They start sentences and never finish them. They repeat themselves. They say things like, "you know," and "like" all the time. Language is messy. Language is human. It's about the message, the tone, the connection. So if your goal is confidence, don't aim for perfect. Aim to be real. I want you to think about this. Can you remember a moment when you didn't speak because you were afraid of making a mistake? Maybe at work, maybe in a shop, maybe at a social event. What would have happened if you had said something simple instead of staying silent? Even a small response like, "I'm not sure," or "Can you repeat that?" That is a victory. Every time you say something, even something small, you're telling your brain, "I can do this." Here's something else I want you to remember. Your accent is not a problem. Your voice, your background, your way of speaking, that's part of who you are. Don't try to erase it. Don't try to sound like someone else. When you speak with confidence, your accent becomes part of your charm, not a barrier. People connect with authenticity, They connect with people who speak with heart, not with perfect grammar. Confidence also grows in low-pressure situations. You don't need a big audience to practice. Talk to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing. Practice small conversations in your mind. Listen to short English clips and repeat what you hear. Record yourself and listen back. You might be surprised at how much you already know, and you'll start to hear the growth in your own voice. Confidence is not a constant feeling. It's not something you reach once and keep forever. It comes and goes. Some days you'll feel brave. Other days, unsure. And that's okay. What matters is that you keep showing up, keep practicing, keep speaking. Even when your voice shakes, even when you make mistakes. Because confidence is built, not in silence, but in action. You already have everything you need to become a confident speaker. Not someday. Today. Not after you learn more grammar, but with what you know right now. Use it. Speak it. Share it. Confidence is already inside you. You just need to let it out. I want to tell you a story about someone I worked with recently. Her name is Elena. She lives in Madrid. She's a talented graphic designer. For a long time, Elena dreamed of working with international clients. She knew that speaking English confidently would open doors for her career. Finally, she got invited to a job interview at a design agency in Amsterdam. She was excited, but also nervous. She had studied English at school. She had been reviewing common interview questions. She wrote down answers. She practiced in front of the mirror. She even recorded herself speaking. She really believed she was ready. But when the interview started, something unexpected happened. The first question came. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? And her mind went blank. Completely blank. The words she had prepared disappeared. Her voice started shaking. Her sentences were broken. She couldn't remember simple phrases she had used 100 times before. The more she tried to fix it, the more nervous she became. After 20 minutes, the interview ended. Elena was devastated. She told me later that she had never felt so disappointed in herself. Does that sound familiar? You prepare. You practice. And then real life happens. Real life feels different. The pressure changes everything. Elena knew the language. But in that moment, her brain went into panic mode. And here's the truth. When we only prepare by memorizing, we don't prepare for real conversations. Real English isn't a list of perfect answers. It's dynamic. It's emotional. It's unexpected. And if we want confidence, we have to practice in ways that reflect that reality. After the interview, Elena didn't give up. She took a deep breath. And instead of feeling sorry for herself, she asked better questions. What went wrong? Why did my mind freeze? She realized something important. She had spent so much time reading and writing, but not enough time listening and speaking. Her mouth wasn't used to forming English sounds quickly. Her ears weren't used to catching natural speech. Most importantly, she had been practicing in a way that felt safe, but not real. So she changed her routine. Completely. She started short, focused listening every day, with the goal of repeating what she heard out loud. Not long lesson, just 10-minute dialogues about everyday topics. Job interviews, casual conversations, workplace situations. She listened once for meaning, then again for structure. Then she paused and repeated each phrase until it felt natural in her mouth. She did this every day, even while brushing her teeth or walking to the store. And something started to shift. After just a few days, she noticed a difference. She could speak with less hesitation. She didn't need to think so hard about every word. Common expressions started to feel natural. Her voice was more stable. She even noticed a change in how she felt about English. Less fear. More excitement. Her brain was adapting. Not because she learned new words, but because she became comfortable with the words she already knew. 2 weeks later, Elena had another interview. This time with an agency in Dublin. She was still nervous, but something was different. Her heart was beating fast, but her mind didn't freeze. The interviewer asked, "Tell me about a project you're proud of." And Elena answered naturally. She used simple language. She paused when she needed, and when she didn't understand a question, she calmly said, "Could you repeat that, please?" The conversation flowed. She smiled. She felt in control. After the interview, she called me and said, "Julia, I did it. I didn't feel like a student. I felt like myself." And that feeling, being able to express yourself without panic, that is powerful. And here's the truth. Confidence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from practice, from showing up every day, and training your ears and your voice to work together. Elena didn't need more grammar books. She needed connection. Connection between what she heard and what she said. Connection between her thoughts and her voice. That's why I always say this. Speak the English you know. Repeat real phrases you hear in real situations. Don't aim for complicated answers. Aim for clear, calm communication. That's what people respond to. That's what builds confidence. You don't need to memorize every answer. You need to prepare your voice and your mind to be flexible and ready. Elena's story is a powerful reminder. Confidence is not a switch you turn on. It's something you grow, step by step. And sometimes, it takes a hard moment, like a failed interview, to show us what needs to change. But when you use that experience as motivation to try something new, you grow faster than you ever thought possible. Elena didn't let fear win. She changed her method and her mindset. And that made all the difference. One of the biggest misunderstandings I hear from English learners is this. They believe that more time always means more progress. People say to me all the time, "Julia, I don't have hours to listen to English every day." And I always smile because here's the truth. You don't need hours. You don't need long, complicated lessons. What you really need is short, focused listening sessions. Just 10 minutes a day can make a real difference. If you do it with purpose and attention, think about it. If you try to listen to a 1-hour podcast while doing the dishes or walking through a noisy street, Your brain is doing too many things at once. You might catch a few words here and there, but you're not really learning deeply. Now imagine this instead. You sit down for 5 or 10 minutes. You listen to a short conversation. Something changes. Your brain is fully engaged. You notice the rhythm of the sentences. You hear how the words connect. And most importantly, you can repeat what you hear while it's still fresh in your mind. This type of practice is powerful because it builds something we often forget about: automatic response. When you listen to key phrases every day and say them out loud, you train your brain and your mouth to work together. You're not just learning with your eyes or your ears. You're training your speaking muscles. You're building memory. And you're building confidence, all at the same time. That's why these short sessions are so effective. They're targeted. They focus on one small skill. And they're easy to repeat again and again. Let me share what I recommend. Step 1. Choose a topic, something simple and useful. For example, introducing yourself, ordering food, asking for help, or talking about your job. Step 2. Find a short audio clip or video, under 2 minutes if possible, where that situation is used in real English. Step 3. Listen once just to understand the meaning. Step 4. Listen again. Pause after each sentence. Repeat it out loud. Focus on the sound, the rhythm. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Step 5. Listen a third time, and this time, try to repeat the sentence before the speaker finishes. This helps your brain think faster in English. It trains your mind to predict what comes next. That's what fluent speakers do. They don't translate. They just respond naturally. I remember one learner, Sophia from Rome. She worked in customer service for an international company. She told me, "Julia, I don't have time for long English lessons after work." So we made a plan. One short conversation each day. Something she could do during her lunch break. One day, it was about greeting a customer. The next day, solving a problem politely. Each day, she listened 3 times and practiced saying key phrases out loud. After 1 week, she noticed something amazing. Her responses on the phone were smoother. She wasn't thinking as much. She was just speaking. That is the power of focused repetition. And here's something else. Short sessions keep you motivated. Long lessons can feel overwhelming. It's easy to give up. But 10 minutes? Everyone can find 10 minutes. You can do it while waiting for your coffee, during a short walk, right before bed. And because the sessions are short, you're more likely to repeat them. And repetition, that's where the magic happens. The first time you listen, it's new. The second time, it feels familiar. By the third or fourth time, your brain starts to accept it as something you own. There's also a psychological boost. When you finish a short session, you feel successful. You feel like you accomplished something. That feeling gives you confidence. It tells your brain, "I'm getting better." And the more you feel that way, the more likely you are to continue. That's how small habits grow into big results. Let's talk about what you should listen to. Not every English audio is helpful. If the content is too fast or too difficult, you'll feel lost. If it's too simple, you'll get bored. The best material is just a little above your current level. It challenges you, but it doesn't overwhelm you. Look for everyday English real conversations, not textbook dialogues. Pay attention to how people start and end sentences. Notice the little words they use to sound natural, like actually, maybe, kind of, or you know. These are the details that make you sound more fluent. You don't need a big vocabulary to speak confidently. You need the right words in the right situations, practiced in the right way. That's why I love short listening sessions. They give you a space to focus on exactly that. You're not just hearing English, you're learning how to use it, how to respond, how to be part of real communication. Sometimes people ask me, should I write down what I hear? And the answer is, only if it helps you. Writing can be useful, especially if you want to remember a phrase. But don't turn your listening practice into a grammar lesson. The goal here is not analysis. It's fluency. It's repetition. It's getting the sound of English into your ears and your mouth until it feels easy to use. I've seen so many learners transform their confidence just by following this simple routine. You don't need fancy tools or expensive courses. You just need your phone, a quiet space, and your own voice. 10 minutes a day. A short conversation. A few repeated phrases. That's it. And if you do this consistently, you'll begin to feel the change. Not just in your listening, but in your speaking. You'll pause less. You'll respond faster. You'll start to enjoy speaking instead of fearing it. I know it sounds simple, maybe even too simple, but that's the point. Simplicity works. It makes learning sustainable. It makes practice enjoyable. And when learning feels good, it becomes a natural part of your life. That's what we're aiming for. Not perfection, not pressure, just progress. One short session at a time. Let me introduce you to Marco. Marco lives in Milan and works at the front desk of a hotel in the city center. Every day he meets guests from all over the world, tourists, business travelers, families on vacation. As you can imagine, English is essential in his job. But when I first met Marco, he was doing something very common among learners. Avoiding conversation as much as possible. Marco told me he could understand most of what guests said. That wasn't the problem. He could follow instructions, recognize questions, even explain basic things like check-in times or Wi-Fi passwords. But when it came to having a longer conversation, when someone asked for recommendations or started small talk, he panicked. He would smile, nod politely, and find a way to end the conversation quickly. He didn't want to sound awkward. He was afraid of not knowing the right words. So, instead of speaking, he stayed quiet. He felt stuck between understanding and speaking, just like so many learners do. The interesting part is, Marco didn't lack vocabulary. He had studied English at school, taken online courses, and even passed an intermediate level test. But none of that helped him when he had to speak spontaneously. What was missing was practice that felt real, practice that trained his ear and his mouth together. So, we started working on a routine that he could do without changing his schedule too much. He didn't have extra time for long lessons, but he had one important window every day: his commute to and from work. Marco began using that time to listen to 5-minute English podcasts. He chose simple everyday topics greetings, asking for directions, making suggestions, giving opinions. He listened once on the way to work and again on the way home. But this time, he didn't just listen. He repeated the phrases out loud. He paused the audio and copied the pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. At first, he felt a little silly doing this on the street or on the metro, but he found small corners or quiet spots where he could practice softly to himself. And slowly, something began to change. After just a few days, Marco noticed he was remembering phrases without effort. Expressions like, "let me think," or "you might enjoy," started coming naturally. One morning, a guest from Canada asked, "Do you know a good place for dinner nearby?" It was the kind of question that used to make Marco nervous. But this time, he felt ready. Without planning, he said, "Yes, I do. There's a great place just 5 minutes from here. It's a local restaurant with traditional Milan food. I think you'll really like it." He even gave directions and suggested a few dishes. When the guest thanked him and smiled, Marco felt something shift inside. That small win changed everything. It wasn't a long conversation. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And it came from practice, not from studying grammar, but from listening and repeating until the words felt familiar. After that, Marco became more confident. He started answering more questions. He even initiated small conversations, something he had never done before. And the more he spoke, the more he realized fluency wasn't about knowing every word. It was about being ready to use the ones he already had. What worked for Marco was consistency. 5 minutes a day, every day. It didn't seem like much, but over time, it made a big impact. His brain began to recognize patterns. His mouth started to move more easily in English. And because he was practicing real-life phrases, he could use them right away at work. That kind of progress builds confidence naturally. You don't need to wait until you're fluent to speak. You just need enough tools to handle one situation at a time. I asked Marco once what helped him the most. He said, repeating phrases out loud, "I stopped thinking about the grammar and just focused on how it sounded." That shift from analysis to experience is so important. When you stop trying to control every sentence and start trusting your voice, your fluency grows much faster. Marco didn't aim for perfection. He aimed for progress that made all the difference. There was another moment that showed just how far he'd come. A guest from London was having trouble with a taxi booking. The driver didn't arrive, and the guest was frustrated. Marco stepped in, made a phone call, explained the situation clearly, and helped resolve the issue. The guest later wrote a positive review online and mentioned Marco by name, saying how professional and helpful he had been. That review was printed and